Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Nationals podcast. Today it is the 12th of May, 2022, and we will break down the three-game set that just wrapped up earlier today between the Nationals and the Mets. The Nationals dropped 2 of 3, but there was some excitement in the middle of this series. The Nats, a big win in the middle of it. We'll talk about how it all went down and a lot of positive notes to get from this series. That's coming up on today's show.
Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, Locked On Nationals podcast. Josh Neighbors here once again. Find us on Twitter at LO_Nationals. You guys can find me at Josh Neighbors _. You all can find the show wherever you get your podcasts and here on YouTube as well. All right, so we always check the standings, which is our routine. Now, the one nice thing about this series is that no matter what happened, the Nationals record and the Mets record, we're going to be mirror images of each other because they actually came in with like inverse records coming to the series. They were both 10 and 20 entering the series, so whatever happened, their records were going to mirror each other in some way. So the Nationals are now 11 and 22. They are 11 games back, rather, of the first place New York Mets, who are 22 and 11. They're 4 games back of the Phillies and the Marlins, who are at 14 and 17. And they are now 4.5 games back of the Atlanta Braves, who are 15 and 17. The Nats are 4 and 13 at home. They have a minus 30 run differential overall. The current streak is they've lost 1, and they are 4 and 6 in their last 10 games. So how do we get here? We're going to work in reverse order to talk about the games and kind of how they went down. Let's tackle the game from today, the 4-1 loss that the Nationals experienced today. Look, this was, a couple things. On the Nationals side, Juan Soto, could not get very far in this game. And that was all really a part because of, his walk issues. And I saw a stat during the game from Masson. I'm not sure if he walked anybody after the stat popped up, but they said his amount of walks was the most in the majors. And today, 5 innings, today 3 2/3 innings, and just really struggled with command through over 80 some pitches in today's game, and that just cannot happen. I mean, this was a guy that what was it, 40 pitch first inning, really was kind of where he was at that point. The Mets hitters were very patient in working walks, and it just resulted in a really high pitch count. And the game was like 2-0 or 3-0, but the pen had to get active pretty early. And so, the run, this wasn't a case of a guy just getting totally shelled. Now, there was some timely hitting, I have to say, from New York, in today's game. But Adon only surrendered 3 hits. The problem was, he couldn't stop walking guys. And when you, get to the point where he threw 84 pitches, just 2 Ks in the first 3 2/3 innings, yeah, it's not a good enough outing. So Rosmo Ramirez to come in relief. He was really strong. He's been strong all year long. And then Carl Edwards, who we'll get to in a little bit, had a really nice bounce back. Kyle Finnegan worked a clean inning, and Steve Cishek gave up a run later on in this game too. On the other way, I mean, the offense for the Nationals was pretty horrible today. They end up racking up, in the end, 4 hits on the day. They could not touch Taijuan Walker. They're hitting stuff, but they really weren't making a whole lot of headway. Walker goes 7 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 1 K. Seth Lugo works a clean inning, and then Edwin Diaz does give up the solo home run. I will say, if you want anything that is encouraging from today's game, a 2-for-4 day for Juan Soto, which saw him homer, and it feels like the power for him is starting to be there now. Had a home run in that in Colorado, which you expect to see. Had two of them in Colorado, and then had a home run against New York. So it feels like his power output is beginning to get there. He had, what was it, in the first month of the season, 4 or 5 home runs, whatever it was, and now he's getting that home run total. He's homered twice. I forgot the ESPN stats are so screwy. They're not even updated yet. So 2 home runs in the last 2 days. Had 2 in Colorado, so the power's starting to get there, up to his 9th home run of the season for Juan Soto, and got it against a really good player in Edwin Diaz, who's pitched very well. And then also, you saw him double off the wall, almost a home run earlier in the game. That led to some pretty bad base running, and there were a couple instances of this, but I'm just going to go with that one was pretty bad, where Soto gets caught between second and third. Guillorme gets him in a pickle. They throw to Taijuan Walker, who really just almost he kind of put the boom a little bit, if you will, on Juan Soto there. And Soto looked up and was not pleased, and Walker looked and kind of said, what were you doing there? That was followed up by Walker throwing the ball into the outfield. Josh Bell rounds second, goes for third, where Juan Soto is still on the ground, and they throw him out at third. So it was just a kind of a calamity in that situation, and bad base running from Juan, really bad base running from Josh Bell, who's been one of the best offensive players that the Nationals have had, and that compounded. And that's a huge reason the Nationals were not more competitive in today's game, was their base running snafus. That's what cost them. And as good as Juan's been on a team like this, he needs to make sure that he's making the right plays in certain situations. It's just the first highlight they have. Watch it again. Pickle happens. Lindor chases down Soto. Soto slides, and Walker stands him up, then throws it in the outfield. And Josh Bell's not very fast anyway. Gets thrown out. It's Lindor who tags him, and Soto's still occupied the base. I mean, there's 3 Mets standing at third, and Bell had no shot, and should have realized that when he rounded third, and should have seen the kind of the party that was standing there. So I would say for Juan and Josh, that's your 2 best offensive players right now having a major snafu. That's what a losing ball club looks like, but I don't necessarily expect that to come from those guys. It's not that overall concerning, but there have been some tough Josh Bell base running moments so far this season. There have been some Juan Soto's trying to press too much at times moments during this season, and that was one of them right there. So, tough start for Adone. Bullpen looked really good. Soto homers off Edwin Diaz. Kind of that's the big story here, although the Nats end up losing the game. Let's go to a happier game, though, the night before. Before we do it, one quick word from our sponsors. Let me get a sip of water in here as we do. A little sparkling water action today. All right. Today's show is brought to you all by Athletic Greens. Guys, Athletic Greens, it's good and good for you. It's a great way to start off the day. It's 1 scoop into a cup or whatever chalice, whatever you like to use, of cold water. And it supports, alertness. It supports gut health, make you feel better just to start your day off. It's keto friendly. It's paleo friendly, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free. Whatever you are, Athletic Greens jives with that. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs or nasty tasting chemicals or artificial anything. Once again, while still tasting good, it supports better sleep quality and recovery. It supports mental clarity and alertness. It's the one thing with the best things. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science, with constant product iterations and third-party testing. You guys can go right now to athleticgreens.com/MLB network. That's athleticgreens.com/MLB network. They're going to give you guys a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs of Athletic Greens with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, so this second game in the National Series was quite an interesting one. The Nationals won 8-3 in a first inning that saw 8 total runs. And all 11 of the runs in this game came in the first 4 frames of this game. The bottom of the second and the bottom of the first are where the Nationals got 8 runs, but they were down, at this point, 3-0 when they started to get the offense going. So Aaron Sanchez struggles mightily early on in this game in the first inning, but then settles in. He goes 5 1/3, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 K on 75 pitches. It's a pretty good start. Austin Voth, Victor Arano, and Paulo Espino, clean innings, all of them, all those guys have ERAs under 4. So they've been pitching very well this year. The Nationals were all over Tyler McGill, though, in these first couple innings. I mean, they really snuffed it out. Soto homered in that first. Ruiz drove in a run. Franco via the sac fly, and then D. Strange Gordon with the single. And you saw the variety right there of the ways in which the Nationals scored. All kinds of ways. Homers, singles, sac flies, doing it all. And then at the bottom of the second, you get a Nelson Cruz 3-run home run, which was really good to see, right? This is a guy that we have mentioned so much, but he's just struggled mightily. And it's been difficult for the Nationals to kind of watch this guy with the way he's been going as of late. But, ever since the Angels game last Friday, he had been hitting pretty well, right? And hit ever since then. And so, a little bit of a uptick in the offense for him, but I would just say it's still a pretty disappointing year, right? It's still Nelson Cruz. It feels like hasn't totally delivered, and he was 0 for 3 today. Had been getting hot though, and then today, goes over 3. But he has not been the guy that they thought they were going to get. Not the guy that I expected them to get at all, and he has been struggling. And those struggles did continue. They did continue into today, despite the fact that he got off the snide just a little bit. But still, nice to see the Nationals' offensive output. Nice to see them bounce back. Nice to see them come from behind. This doesn't feel like a team that's built to do so. It's not a team that's built to do so. But for them to jump on Tyler McGill as early as they did in a game where, look, you see Starlin Marte drive a run in, then Pete Alonso drives in 2 in the bottom of the first. You think, oh no, here we go again with Aaron Sanchez out there, and he settles in really nicely. And then you get to Tyler McGill, and your bullpen pitches really well behind him and shuts out the Mets the rest of the way after that first inning. Look, I'll take that any day of the week. I think it's a really good effort. I think it's a really good win for the Nats yesterday, and just show that, like, all right, there is some promising stuff here. They do still have Soto. They can get Nelson Cruz going. They can get the offense, keep it at a pretty reasonable clip. But 8-3 win there, and they got to a Tyler McGill. Looked like he was tipping his pitches, and they put a hurt on him, man. They put 8 hits on Tyler McGill, and he did not get out of that second inning. So kudos to the Nats offense there. All right, one more word from our sponsors, then we'll look at the first game, I should say, of the series. A really good Patrick Corbin start once again to get to here just in 1 second. But first, a word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline and BetOnline.net. You go there today, use the promo code Locked On. It's Locked On. They'll get you all there. But go to BetOnline and BetOnline.net. They've got the NBA playoffs. They've got the NHL playoffs. They've got futures for college football and NFL. Obviously, got MLB props and things like that there. They've got F1. They've got NASCAR odds. They've got horse racing odds. Anything you could possibly want in the sports action space, they've got for you. So go to BetOnline and BetOnline.net today. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, so you go ahead and you look at the Nationals in the final game of the series. It was a 4-1. The final game today was 4-1. The previous game was 8-3 win. The opener was interesting, a 4-2 loss that saw a mouse in the outfield and drew a pretty funny Twitter clip of Gary, Keith, and Ron from the SNY booth talking about the rat in that situation. But the big thing is this. So Patrick Corbin pitches a really nice 5 innings. And once again, he had the 8-inning complete game last time out, which was still a complete game. But Corbin goes 5 innings, 3 hits, no runs allowed, and 5 Ks. Was going to be at that point on the right side of the decision. Through 5, the Nationals were up 2-0. So Corbin put them in a good spot. The problem came in that top of the 6th. The Nationals sent out Carl Edwards Jr., and Carl Edwards Jr. had been fantastic in AAA and bounced back nicely today. But the Mets were all over Carl Edwards Jr. They flipped that game around to make it 4-2. The Nationals don't score the rest of the way, and the Mets end up getting the win. Edwin Diaz, Joey Rodriguez, and Drew Smith, who's been fantastic, combined to finish things off for them. After Carl Edwards Jr., it was Steve Cishek, and then Erasmo Ramirez. So let's just go Patrick Corbin here, all right? This is now, and Matt Wyrick had the stats. He's got a sub-3 ERA in his last 3 starts. Am I saying Patrick Corbin is back? No. But is it getting better? You bet your ass it's getting better. Man, it was rough to watch there for a pretty good amount of time, and now he's starting to round into form. I mean, he looked really strong in that Mets game. Now, did have 4 walks. That was the one thing. You get the 86 pitches through 5 innings. Maybe you could have tossed him out there for the 5th, but you're going to that lineup a 3rd time, and you're happy with what he's given you. So maybe you don't want to pressure him too much. But the 4 walks, and we know he can walk a lot of guys, but there was some traffic. Let's just say, but still 5 clean innings. And look at the start before that. That was the 8-inning start with 9 hits, 5 runs, but only 3 earned, with 3 Ks and no walks, 94 pitches. Against Colorado, and there's a big difference. He threw 8 less pitches in this game, in the Tuesday game, compared to that complete game, and he finished 3 less full innings. Well, the big key in that is the walks, right? The big difference: 9 hits, sure, Colorado, 3 runs, and then 3 earned runs, but no walks. That's what allowed him to be a bit more efficient. In this game, 4 walks and 3 hits. Not many hits there in that category. 86 pitches just through 5. That's the one thing for him, is the control. But you go back to the previous start, 6 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 2 earned, 2 walks, and 8 Ks on 90 pitches. So the last 3 starts for him, sub-3 ERA, and has really done a good job, I think, controlling, except for today, but controlling the ball and getting, generated a lot of swings and misses. He looked sharp, really sharp in the beginning of this start against the New York Mets. So I would say Patrick Corbin continues to steadily get better. Now, once again, the big caveat with Patrick Corbin is that, look, you paid him $24 million this year, and it's going to keep going up in the future. He needs to start pitching like that. The last 3 games, he has been a much, much more valuable commodity. And so I think he's starting to pitch himself out of this funk. And they have to be careful with it. They have to make sure they protect him still a little bit. You should say, well, we shouldn't have to be protecting this guy. But, in this start, I think they felt like, okay, they worked some walks against him. They got a few hits. Maybe it's time for the pen. He's at 86 pitches. Maybe you should have left him out. They probably should have left him out there at least for one more inning, I would say, because Carl Edwards Jr. got rocked. But look, hindsight is 20/20. But I would say, yeah, Patrick Corbin, man, that was impressive. What he was able to deliver to them. And then I thought Carlos Carrasco, on the flip side of things, thought he pitched a really nice game. And look, the Nationals were able to get some offense going, but nothing consistent and sustained. And that was kind of the story in game 1 of this series. And the 3rd game of this series, a lack of consistent offense. We did see Riley Adams launch a ball into left field, which was nice to see. But after that, the Mets kind of took over this game and got the win. So that's what went down on the weekend. Carl Edwards Jr. bouncing back. That was tough to see, though, because you want those guys to kind of work out, but not all of the guys that you snag and add to the pen, man. Not all of them work out, right? The Nationals are lucky to get, the Erasmo Ramirez's, the Victor Aranos of the world, the Sean Doolittles, when they got him, of the world. Those guys, Apollo Espinos, whatever else you want to go, a lot of those guys have worked out. Not all of them are supposed to work out. I actually think the Nationals have gotten lucky, and more often than not, those guys have been working out for the Nats. Carl Edwards, just this moment in time, one bad outing, but it wasn't working. He came back and rebounded pretty nicely today. All right, that will do it for today's show. Tomorrow, a preview of the Nationals and Astros series. We kind of relitigate a little bit of what happened between the Nationals and the Astros, their first meeting since you know when. Nationals fans, your chance to point to the ring coming up tomorrow. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at LO_Nationals. You guys can follow me at JoshNeighbors_. The next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.